Never eat these foods before bed after 60. If you're over 60 and you often wake up during the night, struggle to fall asleep, or feel tired even after spending 7 or 8 hours in bed, your evening food choices may deserve a closer look. And no, this does not mean you need to follow a complicated diet. In fact, the problem may be much simpler. You may be eating or drinking certain things too close to bedtime. As we get older, sleep can become more sensitive to things that might not have bothered us years ago. Caffeine can stay active in the body for hours. A heavy meal can leave your digestive system working when your body is trying to rest. Alcohol may make you feel sleepy at first, but it can interfere with sleep later in the night. And if you are prone to heartburn, certain foods eaten late can make lying down extremely uncomfortable. So today we are going through the foods and drinks you should think twice about before bed after 60. And there is an important point before we begin. You do not have to completely eliminate these foods. The timing matters, your individual response matters. And if a particular food does not bother your sleep, there may be no reason to fear it. Let's start with one of the biggest nighttime sleep disruptors. Number 1, coffee and other caffeinated drinks. This one may sound obvious, but many people underestimate how late caffeine can affect them. Coffee is not the only source. Caffeine can also be found in some teas, sodas, energy drinks, and chocolate. And here's where things get interesting. You might drink a cup of coffee at 4 in the afternoon and still feel completely normal at bedtime. You may think, it doesn't keep me awake, so it must be fine. But caffeine does not always prevent you from falling asleep. It can also affect how long you sleep and how efficiently you sleep. A systematic review and meta-analysis involving 24 studies found that caffeine reduced total sleep time and sleep efficiency and increased the amount of time people spent awake after falling asleep. The researchers estimated that a typical cup of coffee may need to be consumed roughly 9 hours before bedtime to avoid measurable reductions in total sleep time. That doesn't mean every person needs to stop drinking coffee 9 hours before bed. People respond differently, but it shows just how long caffeine can matter, and older adults may be particularly sensitive to caffeine's effects on sleep. So if you go to bed at 10 p.m., drinking coffee late in the afternoon may be worth reconsidering if you have trouble sleeping. And don't forget tea. A cup of black tea or certain green teas may contain caffeine too. Even chocolate can contribute a smaller amount. So if your evening routine includes coffee after dinner, caffeinated tea before television, or chocolate right before bed, try moving those earlier in the day. You may discover that your sleep improves without changing anything else. Number 2, large or heavy meals. This is one of the simplest mistakes to fix. You finish dinner late, then you have a large portion because you are hungry. Maybe there is meat, potatoes, pasta, bread, dessert, and something to drink. Then you go to bed shortly afterward. Your body is supposed to be transitioning towards sleep, but your digestive system is still dealing with a large amount of food. The National Institute on Aging recommends avoiding large meals within about 2 to 3 hours of bedtime. And this is particularly important if you notice bloating, discomfort, or heartburn at night. Think about the difference between eating a normal dinner at 6 or 7 and eating the same meal at 9:30 and going straight to bed. The food itself hasn't magically become unhealthy. The timing has changed. So instead of thinking, I can never eat this food again, ask yourself a better question. Do I really want to eat a large amount of it right before lying down? Usually the answer is no. If your schedule forces you to eat late, consider making the meal smaller and giving yourself some time before lying down. Number 3, fried and very high-fat foods. Fried chicken, French fries. Large portions of pizza. Heavy creamy dishes. Greasy fast food. These foods can be especially uncomfortable close to bedtime, and there are 2 reasons to pay attention. First, a very heavy meal may leave you feeling overly full. Second, high-fat foods can be a problem for people who experience nighttime acid reflux. The American College of Gastroenterology recommends avoiding meals close to bedtime for people with reflux and suggests allowing at least 2 to 3 hours between eating and lying down. So if you regularly experience burning in your chest, a sour taste, regurgitation, coughing, or discomfort when lying down, your late-night meal deserves attention. But don't make the mistake of assuming that every fatty food is automatically bad. Foods such as nuts, seeds, avocado, and fish can be nutritious. The bigger issue is often the combination of a large, heavy meal eaten too close to bedtime. That's an important distinction. Number 4, spicy foods. If you love spicy food, you don't necessarily need to give it up. But eating a very spicy meal right before bed can be a bad experiment if you are prone to reflux or digestive discomfort. Hot peppers, spicy sauces, heavily seasoned dishes, and certain spicy restaurant meals can trigger symptoms in some people. And once you lie down, reflux symptoms can become more noticeable. You might wake up with burning in your chest, or you might notice an unpleasant taste in your mouth, or you may simply keep waking up because you're uncomfortable. The key word here is some. Spicy food does not cause reflux in everyone. So don't let anyone tell you that every person over 60 must completely avoid peppers. Instead, pay attention to your own pattern. If you eat a spicy dinner at 9 p.m. and repeatedly wake up uncomfortable at midnight or 1 in the morning, that is useful information. Move that meal earlier, or reduce the portion, or choose a milder version at night. Number 5, alcohol. Technically, alcohol is a drink rather than a food, but it absolutely belongs in this conversation. Some people use a glass of wine or another alcoholic drink at night because they believe it helps them relax. And it may make you feel sleepy initially, but feeling sleepy is not the same thing as getting good quality sleep. Alcohol can interfere with sleep later in the night and contribute to awakenings. The National Institute on Aging specifically recommends avoiding alcohol as part of better sleep habits. And for older adults, there is another issue. Alcohol can interact with medications. So if you take prescription medicines, don't assume that a small evening drink is automatically harmless just because it doesn't make you feel intoxicated. Talk with your healthcare professional or pharmacist if you're unsure. The important lesson is this: don't use alcohol as a sleep aid. If you are having trouble sleeping, alcohol can create the illusion that you're helping yourself while potentially making the second half of the night worse. And now we come to a food that surprises many people: chocolate. Yes, even a small nighttime treat can matter for some people. Why? Because chocolate contains caffeine, although the amount varies considerably depending on the type and portion. Dark chocolate generally contains more caffeine than milk chocolate, and chocolate also contains other compounds that may have stimulating effects. That doesn't mean a small piece of chocolate after dinner will ruin everyone's sleep. It won't. But if you are already sensitive to caffeine, eating chocolate late at night may be worth testing. Try moving it earlier in the day for a week, then compare your sleep. You don't need to guess. Pay attention to what your own body is telling you. And there is one more category we need to discuss before part 2. Foods that seem harmless because they are small: cookies, ice cream, candy, sweet pastries. These foods can become a nighttime habit very easily. And the problem isn't that one cookie is somehow dangerous after sunset. The bigger concern is the pattern. A large sugary snack late at night can become part of an overall diet that is higher in added sugars and lower in nutrient-dense foods. Research reviewing diet and sleep has found associations between higher intakes of processed and free sugar-rich foods and poorer sleep features. Although these studies do not prove that a particular dessert directly causes insomnia. So again, don't panic over one cookie. Instead, look at the habit. If your nightly routine is dinner, television, cookies, ice cream, and another snack before bed, that is very different from occasionally enjoying a small dessert. And in next part, we're going to look at several other nighttime foods and habits that seniors commonly overlook, including one category that may wake you up for a completely different reason. And we'll also cover what you can eat if you're genuinely hungry before bed, because going to bed hungry isn't necessarily that deserves attention after 60. Number 6, very sugary desserts and late-night sweets. Ice cream, cake, cookies, donuts, candy, sweet cereal. These foods can be tempting at night, especially while watching television. But here's where we need to avoid exaggeration. Eating a dessert at night does not automatically cause insomnia. The evidence is more complicated than that. Studies looking at overall diet have found that diets higher in processed and free sugar-rich foods are associated with poorer sleep characteristics. But that doesn't mean one bowl of ice cream will keep every person awake. The more useful question is how often you're doing it and how much you're eating. If you have a small dessert occasionally, that's one thing. If you are eating a large sugary snack every night shortly before bed, that's another. And if you notice that you feel hungry again soon afterward, your nighttime eating pattern may be worth changing. Try having a more balanced dinner earlier. And if you truly need something later, keep the portion modest rather than turning bedtime into a second dinner. Number 7. Very salty processed foods. Think chips, processed snack foods, instant noodles, heavily salted packaged meals, large portions of processed meats. These foods aren't necessarily going to cause insomnia simply because they contain salt. So don't believe claims that one salty snack automatically destroys your sleep. The concern is more practical. Highly processed salty foods can encourage overeating, and a large amount of food or fluid late at night may leave you uncomfortable. And if you already have a condition where your doctor has advised you to limit sodium, nighttime snacking can make it easier to exceed your daily target. There's another reason to pay attention to what you're eating at night. Many people don't eat these foods alone. They combine chips with soda, then add dessert, then continue snacking for an hour or two. The total pattern becomes much more important than one ingredient. Number 8, foods that trigger your heartburn. This is where personalization matters. For some people, tomatoes can be a trigger. For others, citrus. For others, chocolate, peppermint, spicy foods, fatty meals, or certain restaurant dishes. And some people can eat these foods without any problem. So instead of creating a giant list of foods you are supposedly forbidden to eat after 60, keep track of your own symptoms. If you repeatedly get heartburn after a particular evening meal, write it down. What did you eat? How much? What time? When did you lie down? Did you wake up with burning or a sour taste? After a few days, patterns can become much easier to see. And if reflux is happening frequently, don't simply keep changing foods forever. Talk with a healthcare professional. Persistent heartburn can require proper evaluation. Number 9, huge portions of protein right before bed. Now this one needs some clarification. Protein is not the enemy. In fact, adequate protein becomes increasingly important as we age because maintaining muscle mass and strength matters for mobility and independence. So this is not a recommendation to stop eating eggs, fish, chicken, yogurt, beans, or other protein-rich foods. The issue is the size and timing of the meal. A giant steak dinner at 9:30 p.m., followed by dessert, and then immediately going to bed is very different from having a balanced protein-rich dinner several hours earlier. For many older adults, the better strategy is to spread protein across meals rather than saving a huge amount for late at night. And if you are hungry before bed, a small, balanced snack may make more sense than a massive meal. Number 10, large amounts of liquid with your nighttime snack. This isn't really about one particular food. It's about the combination. You eat a large late-night meal and then drink a huge glass of water, tea, juice, or another beverage. A few hours later, you're awake because you need to use the bathroom. This becomes particularly frustrating when it happens multiple times. The National Institute on Aging recommends avoiding large amounts of liquid late in the day if nighttime sleep is being disrupted. But don't interpret this as stop drinking water. Hydration remains important. The goal is simply to avoid unnecessarily loading up on fluids immediately before bed. If you routinely wake up several times a night to urinate, talk with your healthcare professional, especially if this is a new or worsening problem. There may be causes that have nothing to do with what you drank at night. Now here's something important. What should you eat if you are actually hungry before bed? Because the answer isn't necessarily nothing. Going to bed extremely hungry can also make it harder for some people to settle down. If you need a small snack, keep it simple. A small serving of plain yogurt, a modest portion of fruit, a small amount of nuts, or another light snack that fits your overall diet and any medical conditions you have. The goal is not to create a magical sleep food. There isn't one food that guarantees perfect sleep. Instead, you're trying to avoid turning bedtime into a large meal. And if you have diabetes, kidney disease, food allergies, reflux, or other medical conditions, your best bedtime snack may be different from someone else's. That's why generalized internet lists can be misleading. Now let's put everything together. If you're over 60 and want better sleep, you don't need to fear food. You need to pay attention to timing, portion size, caffeine, alcohol, and your individual triggers. A simple evening routine might look something like this. Finish your main meal a few hours before bed when possible. Keep late meals smaller. Avoid caffeine later in the day if it affects your sleep. Don't use alcohol as a sleep aid. If you have reflux, identify your personal trigger foods and avoid eating close to bedtime. And avoid turning television time into hours of continuous snacking. Most importantly, don't assume that every nighttime sleep problem is caused by food. Older adults can experience sleep problems for many different reasons. Medications, pain, anxiety, sleep apnea, restless legs, frequent urination, depression, medical conditions, and changes in sleep patterns can all play a role. So if you regularly struggle to sleep, wake repeatedly, snore loudly, gasp during sleep, or remain exhausted during the day, don't simply keep removing foods from your diet. Talk to your healthcare professional. And here's the biggest takeaway from today's video. There is no universal list of foods that every person over 60 must never eat at night. The real problem is often the combination of the wrong food, the wrong portion, and the wrong timing. Coffee at breakfast may be completely different from coffee at 9 p.m. A balanced dinner at 6:30 may be completely different from a giant greasy meal at 10 p.m. And a small dessert occasionally is very different from a large sugary snack every night. So don't focus on fear, focus on patterns. Try moving your caffeine earlier. Finish large meals earlier. Give yourself time between dinner and lying down. Pay attention to reflux triggers, and notice what happens to your sleep when you change one thing at a time. Because sometimes the best improvement isn't removing an entire food group, it's simply changing when you eat it. And that small change can make your evenings more comfortable and your nights more restful. If you've been waking up tired every morning, your dinner plate may not be the only thing to examine, but it can be a very good place to start.